Hey guys, Barry here, back for another episode of the Comeback Game podcast. Pretty excited to have Lisa Messenger on the line today. Lisa, how you doing, darling?
I'm good. I was just saying before we went on air, it's so nice to connect with you. It's beautiful, and I'm glad we get to do this publicly. But I haven't physically seen you for like 3 or 4 years. So yeah, so whoever's watching, listening is going to get our real-time conversation, which is pretty special and no doubt pretty juicy.
Yeah. So 3 to 4 years, lots probably changed, lots gone on. Where are things at for you now? Like, I feel like my only relationship with you is through Instagram. But
Yeah.
very much appreciated that you can join me today.
Yeah, where are things at? Gosh, which I can take you on any bit of the trajectory. Where would you like to go? Life, business, constant evolution. And I just watched your 3.5-minute video or whatever on your website, and I was like, wow, there's a lot of synergies, and I think we'll have a lot to talk about. And I loved your messaging and everything that you seem to stand for now, from what I've been watching from the sidelines. So yeah, go for gold. You can ask me whatever you want, but I can get you up to speed if you want, first of all.
Yeah, well, I think we'll get up to speed, and what I will kind of kick off with is that, you know, what I see is that we never have business problems. We only ever have personal problems that are expressed through our business.
Yeah, that's an interesting take. Yeah.
Yeah. So catch me up. Where are we at?
So we kind of need to go back. So I started my first business October 22nd, 2001. So it's just over 17 years ago. And then I'll leap forward. But yeah, the first 11 years of that business, I was kind of over-servicing, undercharging, you know, being everything to everyone. Lots of small businesses can relate. And then finally in 2012, I came up with what I didn't know would be a groundbreaking, world-changing idea at the time, but the idea for Collective Hub, which I launched in March 2013, as you know. And I launched it as a print magazine because I was frustrated, and I think, you know, that's a great place to start when you go to business, is what's the pain point, and if you're feeling it, other people are as well. And Collective was launched really for entrepreneurs and creatives and startups to tell the story behind the story and the pain points, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the stuff that so seldom is talked about. And I just wanted to, you know, find out, you know, the hows and the whys. I was frustrated myself as an entrepreneur for the previous 11 years that no one seemed to be having real conversations, you know? And so, yeah, so I don't know how much of that you want me to go into now, but 3 staff under the age of 25, no idea what we were doing, never worked for media, never worked for a magazine, but had a really, really, really strong vision. And yeah, and in a market that was highly saturated, that people said was dead or dying. So everything was stacked against me. And then within 18 months, the print magazine was in 37 countries. And suddenly I was at the helm of this huge beast, you know, and we can dig right into all of that, but it was extraordinary and like the wildest journey I've ever had. But at about year 3.5, I suddenly got really out of control. And so, you know, you talk a bit about this, and I know what you're doing at the moment, but what I've learned is, you know, bigger certainly isn't better. And it was kind of fascinating that I started with this huge vision and, you know, 3 staff, everyone was on like 30 grand or whatever the lowest was that you could pay. Suddenly I had 32 full-time staff, over $3 million in fixed salaries, an office that costs nearly 300 grand a year. Everything seems to be in 300,000s or something. And it became all about systems and processes and HR and IT and finance and legal, and kill me now, that's not my sweet spot. Like, I am brilliant at being a visionary and seeing things before they exist, and, you know, creating and moving forward. I'm terrible at all the aforementioned. And so suddenly I found myself not kind of in my sweet spot and going, wow, be careful what you step into. You know, I stepped so far and so deep into my purpose, and suddenly I was drowning. And it wasn't fun for a while, you know, and that is probably the second, well, actually in equal measure, the most extraordinary thing I've ever done was in April this year. I decided to break the very thing that I'd started. So a lot of people say to me at the moment, what's the most amazing thing you've ever done? I'm like, well, it's twofold. One was having the courage to start something like Collective Hub that got so freaking big and, you know, my wildest dreams. And the second in equal measure is having the courage to break it. And I've really broken it. Like, I've cut the absolute guts out of it. And I now feel more on purpose and more ready to step into a much, much, much bigger, more sustainable game than I ever have. And I'm so grateful for the lessons, because my boyfriend said to me recently, well, not recently, when I was in the middle of it, you know, crying on the bathroom floor for the 57th night in a row, he was like, but you chose this. And I'm very conscious with my languaging. And I was like, no, I chose to start something with 3 staff that I thought would change the world and have such an impact. But that's very different, being a founder with a big vision, to being a CEO of a very large global media company. So, but I'm so glad I went there, because it's only from going there and living it rather than just intellectualizing it that I can rewind and go, now I can have a comeback, do something completely differently.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that is the very, very, very short summary.
Yeah. Well, it's that calibration, right? Like, often people don't know what they want, but they know what they don't want. Or often people know what they want, but they don't know what they don't want. And it's through experiences like that allows us to kind of test the boundaries on both sides, to then go, okay, well, now I'm questioning myself in a new way because I have a new experience of life and new information based on the fact that I've trodden that path before. Really, like, what on earth inspired you to go out there and start this in the first place with 3 staff that had absolutely no experience in the publishing game in the past? Like, because it's kind of like, it's not really the way that people are taught. It's like, hey, like, model excellence, go and find people that have done it before and, like, you know, instill their strategies. But you kind of went like, I'm going to do the complete opposite of what everyone else tells me to do.
Yeah, 100%. And that's what I do every single day, very purposefully, very consciously. I live life very counterintuitively to the norm and the status quo and what's expected of us by society. So very purposefully, very consciously.
Daring and disruptive.
Yeah, Daring and Disruptive, my first book in this series. So the reason is this. I mean, it's manifold. I was comfortable. I mean, this is, you know, cliche, but cliche for a reason. Having had a business for 11 years, like, you know, as I said, for the first while, I kind of undercharged, overserviced, was everything to everyone, had no systems and processes, kind of. But then I ended up having quite a profitable kind of marketing and branding business, but I was bored out of my brain, you know. I couldn't work out how to scale. I couldn't work out how to have more than 3 staff. And this is kind of an irony for people to listen to. I was always embarrassed when people used to say to me for that first 11 years, they'd be like, how many staff do you have? As if that was the only measure of success. And I'd always think, oh, this is so embarrassing, 3. And I was so embarrassed. And now I'm like, God, if only I only had 3. So it's interesting, the flips. So I was bored. I was very comfortable from a monetary standpoint, but I don't think, you know, comfortable is a great place to be. And also, I was kind of at a point of 11 years in business. I was like, go big or go home, you know. And I remember distinctly, I was in Bali. And I said to my staff, okay, I'm either going to come back and move to Byron Bay and just like sit on a rock and meditate and gaze at my navel for 12 months and take some time out, or I'm going to like have a crack at doing a magazine. And they're like, a magazine? Like, why would we do it? But the only logic, and it was completely frowning at me, like, what? It was completely illogical, only for the fact that I was surrounded by extraordinary entrepreneurs and thought leaders and game changers. And I was kind of like, my rationale at the time was, well, if only I could smush them, very technical term, smush them all together in some kind of format and share this with the world. And I was frustrated with the media. I was like sick of the salacious gossip and the vacuous content, and reading about extraordinary inspirational people but not understanding. It was like I was reading about their success stories, but I was like, I don't understand. How did they get there? How did they fund it? What was the supply chain? Where did they make the product? You know, how did they manufacture it? I was scratching my head all the time asking, but how, but why, but why? So I was kind of like, oh well, I'll give it a go. And I did, and I knocked on a lot of doors. The first issue cost $350,000, and I didn't have much money. I didn't have that kind of cash to throw around. So yeah, counterintuitively, I went and pre-sold it to Commonwealth Bank. $200,000 they gave me. I've still never borrowed a cent from a bank other than for mortgages, but I've never borrowed a cent from a bank for business. That may be crazy, but I've never borrowed a cent from anyone else actually, and I still own it 100%. In future, I'll do things differently, and we can talk about that. But yeah, so I just started it. And the thing about it is, and I think this is really, really important, is that all I had at the time was this insane sense of purpose, unlike anything I've ever felt. Like I was like, I just want to do something. I want to give a voice to extraordinary entrepreneurs and creatives, and I want to inspire people. I want to tell the story behind the story. And that's really as simple or as complex as it got. And yeah, I had no smarts around it. I mean, I had some business acumen, had no contacts, no credibility, no nothing really to speak of, but I just had this burning sense of purpose. And when you have that, it's all around mindset in my experience. And the synchronicity and the serendipity was just extraordinary. Like the doors that then started opening and the things that I've experienced in the last 5 years just blow my mind every single day still. So yeah.
Where did that purpose come from? Because it sounds like when you're in Bali, you're like, oh, I'm either going to do this or I'm going to do this. And it's like there's very much like a space of being on the fence. Like where did that purpose come from? Like when did you wake up and it's like, bang, it's there. Like I know what I'm doing. I know what I've got to do, and full steam ahead.
So in my experience, the best things happen when we're at that knife's edge. You know, it's like this pendulation between, I'm so frustrated, I'll just go this way, or I'll go this way. And so I really urge people, like I know whenever I'm feeling horrendously uncomfortable now, it's like a fire in my belly. It's like a rocket in my ass, you know, I'm just ready to go. But in equal measure, I could easily run the other way. But probably from like throughout my whole 20s and before I had a true semblance of who I was and a much deeper understanding of how that mattered, I would probably lean towards like running away from it, because it was that feeling of uncomfortability. And I see that time and time again across platform, whether I'm doing a speaking gig or someone's, you know, commenting on social media or sending me an email or whatever it happens to be. People are like, there's this fear or this self-sabotage. We find all sorts of ways to keep ourselves small. I'm not good enough. I don't have experience. Actually, you know, that external validation we're waiting for. And so that's the uncomfortable point. And that's when I'm kind of like, okay, feel it. It hurts. It's painful. Now frickin' go. So I think that was it. I was like, and I'm actually probably in a similar space at the moment, you know, because now that I've kind of closed down one iteration of the business, I'm actually in that similar situation again. Like I've started working on a very, 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 very big tech play, but I'm still in that. I'm probably back in that space of, do I just whip to Byron, or, you know, go stare at my navel for a while and like actually chill out for a while? Or do I, you know, have a second crack at this? We see, you know, so many businesses all over the world that about between year 3 and 5, they kind of falter and stumble, and then they kind of go, I wrote this down, readjust, realign, recalibrate, your words, at about that period. And it's like, okay, do I shut up shop, or do I actually dig deeper into my purpose, you know, realign, reassess, have some time and space And that's really, those two words have been really important to me the last 6 months. Time and space just to sit with it, feel deeper into my purpose and kind of really question, okay, what next and where do I go? So, yeah.
And I believe that, you know, like we all know what that is deep within us. Like I've never met anyone that doesn't know what they want. I've met a lot of people that have been conditioned by society or by their upbringing to not ask for what they want, or people that are so goddamn busy just like living, right? Just surviving, that they're not actually in tune enough with what I call is like their heart or their real spark, that they're not conscious enough or in tune enough to hear that whisper. Because I believe that our heart is constantly communicating with us, but it's not a loud voice. Like it's not a screaming voice that gets loud if you don't listen. It's a subtle whisper. And it's through those moments of time and space that we allow ourselves to kind of listen to that whisper and allow that to grow into the next direction. Like, do you kind of feel like you talk about this, like, you know, the Byron sitting there looking at your navel or like doubling down, like, do you really feel that that's gonna fulfill you? Like knowing you as I have over the last it's a good idea, but let's be honest. It's probably just allowing a choice on the menu to have that contrast of doubling down and allowing you to kind of consciously choose that it's time to make a big play.
Yeah. So I mean, I think there's ways to oscillate between the two, and it's just about, for me, routines and rituals, which when I started my entrepreneurial journey, the very thought of routines and rituals made me run a mile. But actually it's only through those that I'm able to do what I do. But there's certain like not negotiables. Like I don't start work before 10 a.m. So I always try and, do my meditation, do my exercise, go for a walk with my dog, Benny. You probably remember Benny. He's somehow behind me. And then I listen to, a podcast, or I educate myself in some way. Because the thing is, and you just said it, a lot of people just like live life according to other people's expectations, or, we all glorify being busy, and there's a big difference between being busy and being productive. And so there's certain things that I just, I just absolutely allow myself the time and space to get still, to educate myself, to journal, to really just allow myself to, dream and think before I start reacting to the noise of the world that just comes at us all the time. And I think, unfortunately, so many people, for so many reasons, living life according to societal expectations, whatever it is, external factors, mortgages, kids, money, whatever it is, people get on this treadmill. And and I mean, even with collective, even when life was so extraordinary, I was almost reacting. And that was interesting, because as I stepped further and further into my purpose, the opportunities I had, like, we'll fly you to New York to do this, you'll go to this catwalk runway show with this, you'll do like all these things. And I realized I was just going, yes, yes, yes. Now they were exciting opportunities. But when someone said to me in the middle of this year, let's go on a holiday, where would you like to go? I was like, wow, where would I like to go? Well, that's an interesting decision that I have to make, because I've had so many extraordinary opportunities thrown at me for so long that I haven't had to make that choice. So I haven't given myself the luxury of that choice. So even such a simple question as where would you like to go? I was like, I don't know. I actually started crying. I was like, I don't know. I've just had so much opportunity. So it can happen, I think, if we let it, at either end of the scale. You either lose your identity and you're stuck at home and you're tracky ducks, on the couch eating chips and you don't know who you are anymore, or you step so far into your purpose that, all this stuff just keeps coming at us. So either way, you can let other factors dictate the life you're living, if that makes sense. But for me, everybody gets a conscious choice.
Yeah, it's kind of like, we live in this ecosystem. Let's just look at the ecosystem of the ocean and all the different sized fish. There's always going to be a bigger fish to eat you, or a smaller fish for you to eat. And it's kind of, in some ways, a conscious choice of where we choose to live within the ecosystem. Wherever we choose to okay, as long as we consciously choosing, because I see so many people that are making decisions daily and living lives that aren't actually a conscious choice of their own. They're unconsciously choosing through not choosing the life. And I remember in Mark's book, The Subtle Art, something that was really strong for me was, you know, the question was like, are your goals actually your goals? Like, is what you're chasing right now, is what you're going after actually what you want? Or is it what you believe that you want based on fitting into society? And I see it a lot with business owners that are like, oh, hey, I want a $10 million business, or hey, I want a $50 million business. And when you get to the core of it, all they're wanting is a certain amount of money to live a certain amount of lifestyle, which they could actually have as a $2 million business if they choose that. But there's this thing of more staff or more zeros to the end that's driving them in a direction that's actually not filling them or making them happy.
100%. Yeah, and Mark's book is very good because he poses more questions than answers, so it actually makes people start thinking. And that one is very interesting. And again, it's all about a feeling and an outcome, I think. And so many people just say, I want a really big yacht, or I want this, but they never stop to actually think. I mean, it's like the old adage, it's the Joneses, isn't it? I want what the neighbors have, or I want this because someone else has it, or I think society dictates. And then it's actually interesting. I love playing this game with people when you're like, oh, wow, what do you want a big yacht for? And then, you know, and then it's like, oh, well, because I want to look great. But why do you want to look great? And then you bring it strip back. And it's very confronting for a lot of people, because suddenly, like you say, they're like, well, I just want to feel great, or I just want to be happy. And you're like, okay, well, is that the right thing? And I 100% know it's very interesting going from kind of what became a highly profitable business by 2012, 11 years into business with 3 staff, to, you know, owning Collective, which, yes, a very big global brand, but let me tell you, the brand was way bigger than the bottom line. And I mean, I went back to not paying myself and eating baked beans pretty much for a while. So yeah, just because you add a lot of zeros to a bottom line, your expenses unfortunately generally escalate at the same pace, you know, so it's not always the answer. And it's easy to trap yourself in that as well. I think we start businesses as entrepreneurs with this, you know, ideology of freedom. And in fact, it's the antithesis of that. Suddenly we're chained to the desk and all our employees, and we're arriving at work at 8 a.m. every morning because we think we need to get there before they get there. And, you know, so I love all of this, and I love human psychology, and I love playing with it and questioning, because it's something, I think, whatever we choose to do, it's something that we have to consciously question every single day, really.
Yeah, and this is where I suppose, like I shared in the beginning, I said, you know, like, we don't have business problems, we have personal problems that are expressed through or in our business, because in many ways, like, our environment and the way we choose to see it is an expression of us, right? We know that the way that our filtering system is that me and you could be having the exact same experience of life, yet experiencing that experience differently, because we never see life as life is, we see life as we are. And so seeing that we have business problems is us choosing to see them as problems over opportunities, or over, you know, chances to grow and evolve.
100%. And that's, you know, that's a mindset flip. And so people often say to me, oh my gosh, I mean, I love all this stuff. You know, when I started my business in 2001, I remember something like I couldn't pay an $80 invoice, or someone couldn't pay me. I just remember $80 and having a meltdown about $80. And I'm like, you know, you said before, small fish, big fish, like, everything is relative. And what scared me then is very, very, very different to what scares me now. And it's all about, you know, mindset flip. Back then, you know, a few tricky things came at me, and a few exciting things came at me. And now it's like, you know, every 6 minutes, something freaking amazing comes at me, but also something freaking scary comes at me. And so I've had to learn. People go, well, how aren't you, you know, well, permanently catatonic in a ball rolling around on the floor? And the thing is, I've learned to train myself to go, wow, that was really tough, but that'll make a great chapter for a book. Or, wow, I really learned from that, I won't do that next time. Or so it's how we choose to see things, through what lens, and how we choose to learn from it, and for me, share the lessons learned. So I make it about something much bigger than me.
Yeah, and I don't see the 56 nights in a row you're on a ball in the bathroom crying either. Like, this is the beautiful thing, is that You know, even for us to post something on social media, you know, vulnerable, raw or not, people still have a perception of what that means for them based on where they're at. You know, like I often hear, oh, yeah, but yeah, you've got money, or yeah, but you've got this. And it's like you say, it's like the problems don't change, right? The problems that you have down here are relative to being down here. The problems you have up here are relative to being up here. There's still challenges, there's still fear, there's still opportunities wherever you're playing within the ecosystem.
Yeah, and to paraphrase Oprah, what does she say around, you know, money just amplifies whatever it is you are. You know, if you're a narcissistic wanker, well, you're probably going to be, that's going to be amplified. Or if you're a beautiful soul, well, you'll probably, you know, we have this choice to keep stepping with however our life evolves. But I am also fascinated about this, you know, societal misconception. I'm always, because I'm very, you know, raw and open and vulnerable and authentic across my social media channels, or if I'm doing a speaking gig and through my books. But it doesn't matter how much you say to people, you know, I nearly sunk the business, or I just, you know, whatever. And they're like, oh, anyway, can you invest in my, I'm like, oh my God, still, however much you say it, they still have this perception of whatever it is that they want to, you know, take on from what their perception of you is, I think. So I'm always fascinated and perplexed by that.
Yeah, well, often I don't think people don't take long enough to actually sit in the reality of what's happening. You know, like you talked about the yacht, it's like, okay, let's sit in the reality of me owning a yacht. What does my business have to look like? What does my life look like to have something like that? And there's always there's sacrifice or, you know, investments that we need to make in order to have something else. It's not all, you know, like someone once said to me that you can't get rich collecting one-sided coins. Like life is duality. And so with every coin there is an effect.
Oh, I like that.
This is the way that life is designed. And so if you want more of this one, that's cool, but you also have to have more of this one. You've got to be able to handle more of this to have more of this. It's not all plus, plus, plus.
Yeah. And it's like, how much are you prepared to lose? You know, how much, I don't know. I mean, luckily I've got a rather large propensity for risk. So I keep, you know, pushing it. I'm going to push it a little more sustainably in the future. But I freaking love it. You know, I love that. I have a huge appetite for risk and I love playing a big game. So yeah.
What are some of the things that you have set up in life, both you know, internally, non-physical, and physical externally, that allow that comfort zone to take risk? Like I know for me, I typically am very emotional around money, right?
Yeah.
And it's always been that way. And don't tell me I need to get a coach. Like I've been coached on this shit, right?
Yeah.
But all I've learned is to put things in place that allow me to take that emotion away, like put automation in place, put other people in place to manage that stuff. So therefore I'm not needing to be involved to a degree in that, right? Which then allows me to take different risks in my business. Like I'm curious to know with you, like what are the things that you have in place, both internally and externally, that still allow you to have that appetite and ability to take risk?
Yes. So money is definitely one. So, I mean, now more than ever, I am like so intimate with my data. It is not even funny. And, you know, that for years, well, actually it's not true. For probably the first 3 years of Collective. So I was, you know, all over it. Like I knew exactly, you know, every single KPI, every single budget, what was coming in, what was going out. Like I was all over it. And then we grew too fast and scaled, and I kind of took my eye off the ball and kind of gave that responsibility. I had a COO, CFO, general manager, had all the O's in there, all the C's. And actually, you know, unfortunately, as a creative, like you've got to have those extraordinary right-hand people that you trust implicitly, because everything for me is about data. It's like, you know, can I write, you know, well, pretty much I write 2 books a year, but it's like I need to know exactly what channels they're selling through, how much we're pumping behind them in terms of advertising or PR, like what's the input and what's the output. And so that's imperative for me. But what I would say now, and I'm not quite answering your question, but I've put in place, since breaking Collective 6 months ago or so, I actually have decentralized most of my my workforce now. So I've gone back to, rather than lots and lots of full-time staff, which is a very, very hefty cost base, you know, things move so quickly. I have taken on a lot of freelancers and consultants. So I actually made a whole lot of my staff redundant, very boring, very expensive, and then offered them all, freelance positions, which is kind of great because the way that we work is changing and evolving so much. And I found that so much of what we were creating was how to have your own side hustle, how to whatever. And I was kind of like, well, I need to let my own team be able to do that. And actually, it's a much more sensible way for me to work because now people work on a project by project basis. They all have specific KPIs associated with that project. And, if they reach those, then they get more work. And so that kind of thing has made it much more simple to have a much more flexible workforce and much more under control, because my fabulous CFO Kate is looking at data every single morning. She feeds me reports about every single thing that's going on. So that gives me some sense of safety and security now to be able to keep taking bigger risks. And the interesting thing about that decentralized workforce is when I had 32 full-time people sitting in an office, with the magazine, we'd be creating a cover and really 3 people needed to be involved in that conversation, but suddenly I'd have 32 people all in that. But now, because people are working from all over the place, it's much more efficient so far because they're only working on the projects that they need to work on. They don't know about what they don't need to know about, and we all come together when we need to. So I actually think, it will be quite extraordinary, the scale that we can now reach, working in a very different way. So that kind of, to kind of answer you, some of the external things, I guess, it's just looking at, everyone's role is data driven and very KPI specific now, which sounds horribly boring, but it's a much safer way to run a business.
Well, it has the framework and the parameters to allow both them and you to be more creative.
Yeah. And the funny thing is that Amy, who has been the editor of my print mag for a long time, she wasn't even one of my 32 full-time staff. She's been living and working from Kiama, so 2.5 hours south of Sydney, for the last 3 years. She wasn't even in the office. And I would see her physically once a month, maybe once every 2 months. And I was like, hang on a minute. If the main person in my entire business, like literally the main person, isn't even working in the office, isn't even on a full-time salary, what the hell am I doing? So that's making it much easier for me to scale in a different way now. Yeah. And then internal. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, in your lifestyle as well, like between living in Byron and traveling around for the events and things, it's easier for you to manage as well because they're essentially on the same playing field.
Yeah, exactly. And we've just had to, incorporate all sorts of different technologies and tools. Zoom that we're using right now is great, and Slack and, Google Docs and all sorts of other things. So I think, and, actually my next book, which comes out next July, is all about working from wherever, because I always come up with a title and then I step into it and then I kind of show other people how to live that lifestyle. But yeah, it's interesting.
So I've got 2 questions. One's a bigger one. We'll come back to that, which is like, how did you break Collective 6 months ago?
Yeah.
Jump to now. Before we do that, like, what do you think was the key thing? Like, I know there would have been a lot involved. What do you think was the key thing that kind of elevated you back when you started the Collective? Because, it was pretty ambitious. You had a small team to start with, but you kind of seemingly went from being a nobody or being in the background to all of a sudden being center stage, having this massive movement, being disruptive, getting invited places, and things kind of seemingly from the outside world took off. Like, what do you think was the catalyst from the where you're at to what everyone else is seeing? Like, what was the catalyst for that journey?
Yeah, and I don't think it was seemingly, like, I think it just had, like, living it and being at the center of it, it was freaking insane. And I have so many lessons from that. The catalyst, I think, is pretty simple. It's really simple, actually, although I didn't know that until I was right in the middle of it. But if you create something that is about more than you, and you give people a chance to belong to it, then people will carry the message and carry your business and essentially create a movement for you. Like, I could never have done that. Do you know what I mean? I'm just the person at the center who's like, let's do a magazine. Let's make it relatable, attainable. Let's tell the story behind the story. Let's inspire people. Let's give people a voice. Like, that's really all I did. I just kind of was the brand architect and pulled it together. But it's the people like you, thank you, who kind of went, oh wow, cool product. So I guess you got to have a cool product to start with. But then I've never seen anything like it. Like, they just carried the message. And I think the trick to that, or the crux of that, was that I literally from the start said, I might own it financially, but I don't own this. Like, the community owns this. And I think that's the most important thing. Like, that's the most inherent human need, I think, isn't it? Like, to have a chance of belonging, to feel a sense of community, to have a voice, to feel like you're a part of something. And so that's all I did, really. I mean, and I hustled my freaking ass off every day. But I think that's the crux of anything. Excuse me. And I can't even, another way that I could externally say that is having been, having owned media for the last nearly 6 years now, I would have, I don't know, maybe 50 to 100 stories get pitched to us on a daily basis, a little less at the moment, but a lot. And what's interesting about that is generally it's the same thing every time. So I've got this water bottle in front of me. People will be like, look, it's a water bottle, or it's Fiji water, blah, blah, whatever it happens to be. And they'll just talk about the surface things. Whereas I always want to know, tell me about why you started, how you started, where this comes from, what's the supply chain, all that stuff I said before. And then I'm interested in the story. So I think that's the problem. So many brands just present this shiny interface about, and it's a fabulous brand. Let's just agree on that. But it's like, tell me more. Tell me the story behind the story. So as soon as you start to do that and you take people on a journey, then they just come along. And I think Collective as well, because it did start to get some momentum, and my story was that, I had 3 staff under the age of 25, had no idea what I was doing. So suddenly I became this pin-up child for, oh my God, she's got no idea either. Let's go. So, yeah. So I think we overcomplicate things, just create an extraordinary brand that's a love mark that people want to be a part of, and then let them carry the message for you, and be as authentic as you possibly can. I think that's the key.
Yeah, it's interesting. I sent out an email to, or my team did on my behalf, to our audience today, and I called it the Michelangelo effect. And it's like the word to decide in Latin means to cut away. And what I call the Michelangelo effect is like when Michelangelo was asked, like, how did you carve such an exquisite statue in solid marble called the David?
Yeah.
And he said, well, it was quite simple. He said, I simply removed everything that didn't look like David. And so I said, it's very similar to business as well, is that a lot of people are busy going out there, adding more, like more to their business, like, more. And I kind of said the opposite. It's like, remove everything that doesn't look like the vision that you have for your company.
I just get shivers. That is.
Remove and strip away everything that doesn't look like that. Because like you said, like, you're always going to say yes, yes, yes to all these things. And before you know it, you're living this experience that is not the purity of what you had for the vision for your company. And so I kind of said it very relatable to what you shared as well as like, it's not your business, it's our business. And I've kind of been the brand architect to put it together, and I'm behind the scenes, but it's you guys that we stand for and allow them to belong to something bigger than themselves.
Yeah, 100%, which is a beautiful segue into your next question. Why did I break it all?
Yeah, like why and how did you break it all?
Was beautifully articulated by you about, Michelangelo and David and stripping everything back. It was really interesting because I believe that my purpose until the day I die will be to be an entrepreneur for entrepreneurs, living my life out loud, showing that anything's possible. Like, those words, I don't think will change until I'm in the ground. And for Collective Hub, it's 3 words: igniting human potential. And I don't think they'll change. But the delivery mechanism is what people get so attached to. And, so I have always said detachment from outcome, surrender, it is irrelevant. And luckily I said this from the get-go, from issue 1 of the print mag. I was like, it doesn't matter if it's a print magazine or I'm doing a speaking gig. making a podcast with Barry, or, you know, writing a book, or I don't know, producing educational videos, or whatever it happens to be. We need to be able to be in flow and morph, iterate, pivot, change with the markets, you know. And so suddenly I found myself at the center of this freaking expensive beast. And it was literally like my CFO, I'm not kidding, I would finish work, go to the bathroom floor, have a cry, get up, go into the office, and she would say to me, I am not kidding you, every day, we need another $100,000. I was like, and it was in increments of $100,000. Some days it might have been, we need another $200,000. And I was like, oh my, holy hell, who ate the money? Like every day it was this cyclical thing. And I was like, dude, like I signed up to create something extraordinary, to make this change and to have a huge impact and open people up to possibility and inspiration and all this stuff. I didn't freaking sign up to dial for dollars every day and sell my soul. And, you know, and we talked about before, we hit on, you know, whatever, however much you say to people, I'm hemorrhaging, here is our bottom line, we are flatlining red. And then I would say this to all my team, and then they'd look at me and go, okay, can I have a salary increase? Like, it was like, what? Who's not getting this? So I just was like, freaking hell, what, how? So all I had in my mind was, and now I have a different thing about David, but I was just like, oh my God, I just have to break it. I have to break it. And I was just like, I just got to let this burn to the ground, like cut the guts out of everything and start again. Because how did this turn into this thing that just
money-eating machine?
Money-eating machine, and none of it was coming to me. I sold 2 properties last year and made $1.3 million at profit in selling 2 properties, put it in the business and thought that's nice bridging finance, and it ate that as well. So I was just like, okay, this is not good. This is not cool. I'm meant to, like, I know how to run a business. I'm actually a bloody brilliant businesswoman, but I just found myself in this money-eating machine. You're right. So I just decided, you know, and this was a really interesting space of my purpose is, and this is where it's so important to just hold on to your purpose, you know, have this stranglehold on it and know what you stand for. Because when things become that, you know, tumultuous, you could lose yourself very, very quickly and your entire identity and everything else, because you feel like this huge failure. Or you go, this is my purpose. I am not being the best version of me. I am not serving my community. I need to break this down. And that's courageous, and it takes a hell of a lot of guts, because it meant that I had to, you know, make people redundant. I had to do all sorts of things, and, you know, I'm proud to say I did it all with dignity and grace and, you know, in the right way. And I don't think I made any enemies. There might be a few out there, I don't know, hopefully not. Yeah, so I kind of burnt it to the ground, and now I'm really building it back up quickly, which is good.
So when you say building it back up, like, what does that look like? Like, what is a differentiator of how it looks now to how it looks, you know, 8 months ago, say?
Funnily enough, it's not that different externally, but it's very, very different internally in terms of what I said. Like, I don't have that huge cost base in terms of, I don't have a fixed office for the first time in 17 years. So I'm working out of, you know, co-working space, and my team are largely decentralized, and I bring them in and out as and when I need them. So that's how it looks internally, and it's much, much, much more sustainable. Ironically, I've probably almost got more freelancers than I did, you know, internal staff, but they're all working on project by project, budget by budget, you know, all that kind of thing, with very specific, very deliverable outcomes. From an external facing perspective, not that different. So in April, I closed the print magazine after 52 issues and 5 years. But what I realized was that we had commissioned an entire issue 53. And by commissioned, what I mean is we had, you know, paid people to write articles, and we'd done all the interviews. So we had all the content for an entirely new issue sitting on a hard drive that wasn't yet used. So once I'd like slashed and burned the guts out of the business, I was like, well, the community loves us and is so supportive. Newslink, WH Smith, Coles and Woolies, everyone were like, anytime you want to bring back an issue of the mag, bring it back. Like, we love you here, that, you know, that we've got open space on the shelves. And so I was like, oh, well, we've already kind of paid for this. So on the 3rd of December, there is a print issue coming out, and which I need to watch how I manage that, because I don't want to confuse people about I slashed and burned it to the ground and now an issue is coming back. But I think I will actually probably try to bring 2 issues of the print mag out a year, just 2. Not 12, just 2. But that's very easy now. That's just, it's just a nice, tangible, physical thing that gives voice to, you know, a lot of amazing entrepreneurs and inspires a lot of people. And, you know, it holds a place. But for me, I'm working with a couple of very, very, very big, very, very, very smart people on a tech play at the moment. And that's a slow burn, you know. That's like really starting with what are the major problems out there, you know, then how do we even begin to solve those, and, you know, how do we build a unicorn, let's say. I don't know if I've got the energy for it. We'll say I'm playing in that space. But as I said to you, my vision and my purpose is still, you know, 100% as they've been since the day I started Collective. It's just that, you know, I know how to do print, I know how to do social and events and digital pretty well, but what I don't know is how to do a really big tech play, you know, some kind of double-sided marketplace for entrepreneurs. And yeah, so let's see. It's fun educating myself and learning and playing with some of the big, you know, developers and coders, and just playing around with different solutions at the moment. Yeah. So if the worst case scenario, the best case scenario is that I actually get to learn how to, you know, build a product end to end, and it never gets off the ground. But hey, it just might. Let's see.
What's this space?
Yeah. Good. I'm having fun though. I'm having fun, and I feel much more zen and relaxed again, which is nice.
You're looking very vibrant. That's what I said when I joined the call. I was like, I don't know whether it's the fire and air or the water up there, or
I've just been to the gym, so I was like, I forgot we're doing Zoom. Detail is not my thing, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, anyway, here I am. You get me in all my raw.
Yeah. So for the people out there watching or listening to this today, like that are in business, maybe they're at that precipice, that knife's point, like what advice, like what do you think is the best, or maybe the top 3, you know, pieces of advice that you've ever been given by a mentor or a friend or somebody that you know?
Well, just start, because naivety, don't overthink it. I mean, literally just start and then iterate as you go. And I think, just to elaborate on that, you know, you can put something, and I do all the time, I fail all day, every day, you know, I'll put something up on social media which gives you that real-time feedback loop, and I'll be like, hey, I'll test something, and then people will be like, they won't react, and I'll think, oh well, I'll just knock that on the head for another day. Or people will be like, oh yeah, I want to buy that. So don't overthink it, just start, because more often than not, the idea that you think will be the business, it'll change, you know, 100 times before it is kind of market ready. So just start. Have an unwavering, insatiable self-belief. Like, you have got to believe in yourself more than you want to breathe, almost. Because no, you know, if you don't believe in yourself, even at the levels and the connections that I've got, you know, there are now, you know, people say you have a failure and people drop off like flies. So you've got to just keep believing, and you've got to have that unbelievable sense of internal validation and not need that external validation. So unwavering self-belief. Surround yourself with an amazing team. If you're anything like me, I am a kick-ass, like one of the most insanely creative people, and brilliant at ideas, but I am crap at implementation. If anything was left to me, it would never happen. So, you know, that's the self-belief thing. That's not arrogance, but I know what I'm good at. Like, I'm brilliant at that, but I'll back of the envelope it, and then I'm bored an hour later. So unless I have an extraordinary team and great implementers, nothing will ever happen. So a team is so important, I think. Yeah, they're probably the three key things. I mean, I could go on and on. Fail fast.
Yeah, just get started. Insatiable self-belief, and be surrounded by a phenomenal team, and kind of like know your strengths and weaknesses, and be okay that you don't have to actually perfect your weaknesses or even work on them. Find other people that those are their strengths.
And that's it. I mean, I say that I'm a brand architect and I'm terrible at detail, but you know, there are people, like I had a meeting with someone this morning who will be a great member of my team because she's like, oh, I like to be the silent assassin. I just love to implement and get stuff done. And like, you're my girl, because I can't stand it and you love it. Know your weaknesses and yeah, get really comfortable and unashamed about them.
Yeah, I love that. Anything final you feel to share with the guys out there today?
Not really. I feel like I've just chatted, but yeah.
I feel we haven't even scratched the surface though. Like, we could keep going.
Well, we can do, if you get a good response, we can do a round 2 if you like. I mean, the thing is, most things that I talk about are in real time. So as I get further into this next iteration of the tech build, I mean, that'll be a journey that it will be interesting to take people on. Because I literally, everything I do it from a layman's perspective. You know, I'm the guru of nothing really. I'm just like, I just learn and then I teach people as I'm learning. So, or take them on the journey. So that'll be an interesting one to see where that goes. So maybe we have another conversation in 6 months or something.
Yeah, sounds good. Lisa, I'm so grateful and humbled to have you on the show today. And I trust that all the people out there got a lot of value, a lot of bombs. By all means, we'd love the support for you guys to share it around your friends, tag people in that you think that needs to hear this message, and let us know what you thought about what Lisa had to share.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much. Well, I look forward to connecting with you and your amazing community more.
Yeah, thanks so much, Don. Appreciate it.